In the windswept loneliness of 1880s Riverton, Wyoming, Wyatt Jameson, known only as the Ghost, lives a life stripped of purpose, haunted by tragedy and determined to remain unseen. But everything changes with the arrival of Dr. Clara Johansson, a fearless Eastern doctor whose quiet strength and compassion begin to unravel the walls he spent years building. As frontier dangers, buried grief, and deepening emotions collide, Wyatt must confront the past he's been running from. In Clara's steady presence, he discovers a reason to hope again, and a chance at a love strong enough to pull him back into the world of the living. Riverton, Wyoming, in the late 1880s was the kind of town that lived between dust and dreams. With the Wind River Mountains standing like old sentinels in the distance, the town was a crossing point for ranchers, trappers, railroad workers, and the few souls trying to build something permanent in a place built on impermanence. But no one embodied that in-between life more than Wyatt Jameson. Wyatt had been in Riverton for 3 years, though no one could say they truly knew him. The townsfolk called him the Ghost, a man who drifted through life with quiet steps and hollow eyes, working odd jobs, avoiding crowds, and speaking only when he had to. Some said he'd lost his family. Others whispered he'd lost his soul. Whatever the truth, Wyatt carried a grief so deep it seemed stitched into the very lines of his face. He lived in a small cabin on the outskirts of town, near the cottonwoods along the riverbank. Every morning before sunrise, he'd ride out to help with cattle on nearby ranches or chop wood for the boarding house. He worked hard, paid in silence, and when evening came, he slipped back into the shadows. No one expected him to change. No one asked him to. Until the day Dr. Clara Johansson arrived. Clara stepped off the afternoon stagecoach in a crisp blue traveling dress, medical bag in hand, blonde hair pulled into a practical bun, her posture straight as a fencing rail. She wasn't much older than 30, but her eyes carried a determined glint, the sort of quiet confidence that said she had fought for her place in the world. And she had. She'd left the comforts of the East behind, tired of being dismissed, underestimated, or relegated to assisting roles. She wanted her own practice, her own town, and a chance to help people who truly needed her. Riverton, she had decided, needed her most. Wyatt heard about the lady doctor long before he saw her. The saloon regulars grumbled that a woman couldn't handle frontier injuries. The ranch wives whispered that she might just be their answer to safer childbirth. But Wyatt didn't care, at least, that's what he told himself. Their paths finally crossed when he was unloading lumber near the general store. A wagon wheel snapped nearby, startling the team and sending one of the horses rearing. In a crack of chaos, the wagon lurched. And a crate flew off the back, striking Clara hard on the shoulder as she walked past. Wyatt moved before he realized it. He reached her first, steadying her as she winced in pain. "You all right, ma'am?" he muttered, voice low and rough from disuse. Clara blinked up at him, calm, steady, assessing her own injury even before she answered. I think it's just a bruise," she said. "Thank you for catching me." Her tone wasn't fearful. It wasn't nervous. It was grateful. Warm. Like she didn't see him as some ghost of a man. She saw him. Wyatt stepped back quickly, uncomfortable under her gaze. "You should let someone take a look at it." A hint of amusement softened her mouth. "I am the someone." It was the first time Wyatt almost smiled in years. Clara settled into Riverton faster than many expected. She converted an unused mercantile space into a clinic, patched up ranch hands, delivered babies, and stitched bullet wounds without trembling fingers. She wasn't loud, but she was firm. When people doubted her, she proved herself through skill rather than argument. Wyatt avoided her clinic for weeks, though he walked past it more than once, lingering without fully understanding why. He found himself watching her work through the window, treating a child's fever, comforting a crying mother, setting a miner's broken wrist. There was something calming about her presence, something he hadn't felt in a long time. But he didn't speak to her again, until the blizzard hit. The storm came down from the mountains in a wall of white fury. By nightfall, most of the town was shuttered indoors. Wyatt was returning from a long day on a ranch when he saw a small lantern moving unsteadily near the river path. He nudged his horse closer and found Clara, her coat soaked, boots sinking into the snow, her face pale with cold. "What in God's name are you doing out here?" he demanded, voice sharper than he intended. Someone sent word of a woman in labor. I was trying to reach her home before the storm worsened." Wyatt dismounted without hesitation. "You won't make it alone." "I have to," she said, stubborn as ever. "You're freezing," Wyatt countered, shrugging off his heavy coat and draping it around her shoulders. "I'll take you." She hesitated, then nodded. That night, they traveled through the storm together, Wyatt guiding the horse with steady confidence, Clara leaning against him for warmth. When they reached the cabin, Clara delivered the baby safely. Wyatt stayed the entire night, chopping wood, melting snow for water, doing whatever she needed without being asked. When the storm cleared and they returned to town, Clara touched his arm gently. "Thank you, Wyatt. I couldn't have done it alone." Something inside him, something long dead and buried, shifted. After that, Wyatt found himself drifting toward Clara more often. He repaired things around her clinic, lifted heavy crates, brought chopped firewood without being asked. Clara didn't push him to talk, but she didn't avoid him either. She simply let him exist beside her. One quiet evening, she invited him to sit and share coffee. "People say you keep to yourself," she said softly. "That's true enough." She studied him a long moment. "You've lost someone." Wyatt stiffened, jaw tightening, but her voice held no prying edge, just understanding. So he breathed out slowly and told her the truth he'd carried like a stone. Years ago, his young wife and unborn child died in a fire. He blamed himself, not because he'd caused it, but because he hadn't been there to save them. After that, he wandered from town to town, unable to settle or feel anything but guilt. Clara didn't offer hollow comforts. Instead, she reached across the table and placed her hand gently over his. "Pain doesn't have to be the end of your story," she whispered. "Sometimes it's the beginning of something new." Wyatt stared at her hand on his, the warmth seeping slowly into the numb parts of him. Something new. Something he thought he'd never deserve. As months passed, their friendship deepened into a soft, steady closeness. Clara brought him back into life with simple things, quiet talks, shared meals, warm smiles, gentle courage. And Wyatt found himself protecting her from the difficulties of frontier life, stubborn cowboys, harsh winters, illness outbreaks, and the occasional dangerous drifter. When Clara faced opposition from a railroad investor who tried to block her clinic expansion, Wyatt stood at her side, not with fists, but with unwavering loyalty. When Wyatt had nightmares, Clara was the voice that grounded him, reminding him he wasn't alone. Slowly, piece by piece, Wyatt rebuilt a life. And Clara became the heart of it. One golden evening in late autumn, they stood together on the riverbank, watching the sunset turn the water to fire. Clara's hand brushed his. "Wyatt," she whispered. He turned to her, really saw her, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a ghost. He felt alive. "I don't know what I can promise," he said softly. "But I know I don't want to walk through this life without you." A gentle smile curved her lips. "Then walk with me." Wyatt drew her close, the setting sun warm on their faces, and pressed his forehead to hers. For the first time in a long, long time. He believed in beginnings again.